Anguish tonight as friends open up about the Tyler teen who was murdered earlier this week.
Deja Hood was missing for a day until Tyler police found her lifeless body. As they scroll through their memories with Deja, one post stands out to them. The Sunday before her disappearance, Deja posted this picture on Instagram with the caption, "Unforgettable." Deja was killed by someone she considered a friend. That friend, Jamaria Britton, who is now in the Smith County Jail for murder.
In today's episode, we'll be discussing the tragic and incredibly recent case of Deja Hood, an 18-year-old young woman from Tyler, Texas, who many viewed as a successful social media influencer. You see, Deja's beauty, outgoing nature, and kind-hearted personality helped her amass quite the following on social media. Having just entered adulthood and being a current student at John Tyler High School, Deja had so much more life to live, but unfortunately, her life would be cut short by someone no one would have suspected. Those who knew Deja would classify her as a go-getter, the kind of woman who wanted to achieve big things in life. In fact, she loved hair, makeup, and all things beauty-related so much that she planned to have a career in the industry. Her ambitious and outgoing personality made it easy for her to make friends. Those closest to her would say to know Deja is to love Deja. So naturally, it would come as a surprise that anyone would want to see Deja dead. Monday, September 25th, 2023 would be the last time Deja's mother would see her daughter alive. Deja left her home that evening with a 1-year-old child she was babysitting, along with a good friend of hers, Joe Maury Jermaine Britton. She planned to help Joe Maury with a move from his current apartment after splitting with a recent girlfriend. The two had been friends for some time, and Deja was the kind of person who would lend the shirt off her back. So naturally, she didn't mind helping Joe Maury with his move, even if it meant doing so while multitasking and babysitting. After several hours had passed, the child Deja was babysitting had been dropped off to their parents by Joe Maury. Deja's mother and closest friends hadn't heard from her. They started to grow worried that something was wrong. Calls to Deja's phone went unanswered, which only created more cause for concern. Where could Deja be at this point? Certain that something must be wrong, Deja's mom reported her missing to the local authorities and provided the name of the man she was last known to be with, which was Joe Maury. The following day, local authorities arrived at Britton's place at the Holly Tree Apartments complex to question him and see if he knew anything about Deja's whereabouts. Upon entering the home, however, authorities noticed something suspicious. They spotted several blood markings throughout the property, which led to them conducting a more detailed and thorough inspection of the premises. It wouldn't take long for authorities to come across an incredibly gruesome sight. Deja's body wrapped in garbage bags, bed sheets, and tape. Having found Deja's body on the property on which Joe Maury lived and noticing the blood splatter throughout his home, the authorities immediately arrested him. It wouldn't take long for Joe Maury to admit what he'd done. During the interrogation with Joe Maury, he claimed that he picked Deja up from her home with the young child she was babysitting because Deja was planning to help him with his move. While he was alone in the kitchen, he started to think about the breakup he'd recently had with his girlfriend, which caused him to experience a renewed sense of anger. According to Joe Maury, Deja noticed he looked upset, so she came over to him in the kitchen and playfully tugged on his ear, which reminded him of his ex, because apparently she also used to tug on his ear. According to Joe Maury, it was at this point that he experienced a complete sense of rage, so he decided to grab a heavy object nearby, a glass bottle, and then hit Deja in the back of the head with it. He claimed that once he hit Deja in the head, she fell to the floor but was still alive. At this point, he began to physically assault her, using a hammer to hit her in the head repeatedly. After assaulting Deja, Joe Maury decided that he wanted to end his own life, so he attempted to do so with a knife, but failed. He then held a gun to his head. A neighbor heard quite the commotion and decided to go to Joe Maury's apartment, knocking at the door to see if everything was all right. Joe Morey put the gun down, went to the door, and then assured the person he was okay. It was at that point that he snapped out of his rage and remembered there was a 1-year-old baby. The child Deja was watching, sitting on his bed while watching a movie. Knowing that he didn't want to keep the child in the home, he decided to bring the child to the victim's mother's house. Now, at this point, Joe Morey believed Deja was no longer alive. So he dropped the child off and worked his way back home. As soon as he walked into his apartment, he heard Deja calling out for him, which apparently spooked him. In an effort to keep her from screaming out, he then stabbed Deja multiple times to silence her for good. When he was certain she was no longer alive, Jamurea wrapped Deja's body in bed sheets and garbage bags before taping her up and placing her body behind his apartment complex. He waited until 3 in the morning to throw her body over a fence in an attempt to ensure that her body was fully out of sight. About 4 hours later, at roughly 7 in the morning, he returned to the area where he dumped Deja's lifeless body and began covering it with leaves.
First at 6, heartbreak and anguish tonight as friends open up about the Tyler teen who was murdered earlier this week. Good evening and thanks for joining us for CBS 19 News at 6. I'm Brennan Gurley. 18-year-old Deja Hood was found dead behind the Holly Tree apartment complex on Tuesday. Police say she was killed by a man who lived there. As our Nirali Jaiswal reports, those who knew her best say they will miss Deja's smile and her positive energy.
My heart just dropped because it was just so unexpected. And then the way she went was like uncalled for, like she didn't deserve that.
Deja Hood was missing for a day until Tyler police found her lifeless body.
Whatever happened to her is just like, it wasn't like believable.
Deja was killed by someone she considered a friend. That friend, Jamaria Britton, who is now in the Smith County Jail for murder.
From what I know, she was there to comfort him because he didn't have nobody to talk to about things.
Deja's close friends describe her as someone who was full of life and energy.
She was always smiling, happy. She had great energy. She was good-hearted too. She was very talented.
When you first meet her, it's like you know her already.
Deja recently graduated from Tyler High School. She had plans of moving to a big city and going to college.
She was working hard to leave, to get a car.
I hate that that got ripped away from her before it was even started.
I know for a fact whatever he did to her, she had a strong fight.
As they scroll through their memories with Deja, one post stands out to them. The Sunday before her disappearance, Deja posted this picture on Instagram with the caption, "Unforgettable."
I feel like maybe her spirit kind of knew that she was going to go before her actual body knew. You could put somebody in jail all day long, but you can't bring nobody back.
She adds that Deja will be remembered for who she was, not what happened to her, and they will continue to keep her memory alive. In Tyler, I'm Nirali Jaiswal with CBS 19.
As a result of his actions, Joe Morey was arrested and charged with murder and terroristic threats to a family household. He is currently being held on a $1 million bond in the Smith County Jail. Because Deja's murder happened just 2 months ago, it's too soon to know what Joe Morey's fate will be and whether he will plead guilty or go to trial. We'll be sure to provide an update on this case as soon as we have one for you. So, what are your thoughts on this case? Do you believe that Joe Morey Britton murdered Deja Hood simply because she tugged on his ear and it reminded him of his ex? Or do you believe there was something more sinister going on? Many have speculated that Joe Morey expressed romantic interest in Deja, but that she didn't feel the same way, ultimately turning him down. No matter the reason behind his rage, one thing is certain: Deja Hood's life was cut unbelievably short.